Hey everybody, this is the Romance and Adventure Podcast, our weekly conversation on what true romance and meaningful adventure look like in real life. This week we're coming to you from the Algarve coast. I don't know if I can say that right. I can't say any Portuguese.
If someone knows
right.
how to say that, you guys can let us
Yeah.
know. It's probably how it's spelled, but you never know. I don't know how to speak Portuguese.
Yeah, I don't even know how to listen to Portuguese.
Yeah.
So we are coming to you from a little farm, not really a farm, a piece of land in the midst of farms.
Mm-hmm. Country. It's kind of country,
it's
but more
a little
hustle
bit,
and bustle.
Yeah, there's some more sounds you're going to hear, so just hang with us.
Tractors, dogs.
Ooh, you might even hear the golden oriole, which is migrating right now. Yeah, very good. He's been hanging around us lately.
So we'll lean in close.
Yeah, so I'm Ron Cecil.
And I'm Morgan Day Cecil. And this is
Episode 4.
Episode 4, and it's our second of the series we're doing on the practices of romance and adventure for deeper connection.
Yeah, the roadmap.
So this week it's all about transforming everyday routines into life-giving rituals and taking a look at just what it means to bring meaningful rituals into our daily routine, because those things connect us back to the moment, back to the sacred, and back to our true self. So I can't wait for the conversations. I'm a little nervous for the questions you have for me. I would say this is an area of our life that we are becoming more and more intentional about, especially over the last year. But before we get to it, I wanted to...
Let's recap what we talked about last week.
Yeah, last week. So we talked all about delighting in our senses, which was such a fun and funny conversation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and hopefully it made you think this past week, just being present for that navel orange you're eating or mandarin or whatever it is. But I actually was reading... I brought, some of my old yoga journals with me on this trip, and I just happened to be reading one of them after our podcast last week, and I came across such a great study, and I had to share it with you guys.
Wait a second, you recorded a study? No, Yoga Journal is a magazine.
It
sounded like, okay, that's right.
Sorry.
I was like...
Everyone in the know, the yogis out there, they know what I'm talking about. We all have our Yoga Journal magazines.
Yoga Journal magazine.
Yeah, so this is a study that was published in Yoga Journal magazine in December of 2015. So it's about this. Like, there's such thing as happy sweat. And scientists are saying that when we are exposed to people who are happy and then they sweat, like, it actually makes us happy. So researchers credit this to chemosignals, which is odors produced by the body that can transfer emotion to others. How crazy is that?
I get it. Like, awesome they say dogs can smell fear. They can smell happiness.
They can smell happiness. I can smell happiness on you. So think about that. I always think about, like, how we set the tone for our home. And, if we really want to create a family life and a married life of shalom, of peace, of goodness, that really comes down to us and, like, how we are experiencing those things in ourselves and our bodies. Because even if we're saying all the right words, if we're truly not happy or at peace, like, our body odor is going to give it away, it turns out.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I have to say, on a side note, during our early morning cuddles this morning, when we're waking up and we're not quite awake, my nose kind of ended in your armpit.
Oh, no one wants to hear that.
And it was a happy place.
No one wants to hear that. Oh, my goodness. Yes, there you go. So, shall we dive into this week?
I think we should dive in. I think we should get away from that. Sorry. Not so sorry.
Yeah, so sorry.
Not so sorry I didn't share it.
We're keeping it real, guys. Always, right? Just doing our best. We can't do anything but that, let's be honest. We're not trying to keep it real. That's what happens.
You can pretty much guarantee I'm going to say something incriminating or embarrassing almost every episode.
Gosh, it's a vulnerability hangover every time we get done with recording one of these things.
That's right.
Well, that's good. It's good. It's all for you guys. We love it. We want to create this community where we can just be courageous to be ourselves and have so much space just to be here as we are.
Yeah. So like we said, we were going to talk about turning everyday things into meaningful rituals.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's, what that looks like, just to kind of flesh it out a little bit more. If
well,
this is a new topic to you.
Yeah.
It's like there's things that we do every single day. Like, think
like
of all
what?
the things. Like, we have to eat every day.
I got to eat.
We got to sleep.
Yep.
We should shower most days.
Okay, that's maybe.
We got to put our kids to bed.
That does have to happen.
We got to feed them. We got to go to work. and we want to feel good in our bodies. We got to work out. We got to move our bodies.
Yeah.
And so the idea of just bringing ritual into all these things is to just making it special.
Yeah.
I think about just my friend not too long ago. She kind of confessed to me that she struggled to find contentment in her life, and she recognized she had a really good life. She was really happy.
And by your friend, do you mean me?
No. Actually, I don't. I mean a separate person. You are my best friend.
I am content. I'm content most of the time, but I have those moments where I'm like, why is everything meaningless?
No, we do. But no, this is separate. This is not you. This is someone else. I'm not going to name her.
Of course not.
Because she didn't give me permission.
Yeah.
But she was confessing that she wanted to be grateful for her life, and she was, and she recognized it was a happy life. But it seemed to be passing her by, and every year was just going faster and faster, and she was less and less present. Yeah. And I think a lot of us feel this way.
Oh, I think that's a universal feeling. I think that
being an adult,
any of us could say that at any time.
So
absolutely,
rituals help that. It brings us back into the present moment, for one. It helps us be here for our life as it is, and it adds an element of the sacred and the specialness.
So what you're saying is, by bringing kind of a formalization, I don't mean formula, but formalization to a kind of everyday task, we can kind of bring our presence back to it and thereby create meaning in that moment?
Yeah, I
think
maybe intention might be a better word.
Intention. It's not better than formalization.
If we're comparing.
I think I made that word up.
Intention, though, and also, how do we enter in and bring something special to our day?
Yeah.
And don't just be on autopilot, because that's where it gets dangerous. So another way to put this podcast, I was thinking of funny names, but how do we get out of the rut and into the groove? We all want to get into our groove. We all want to find our groove.
How Ronnie got his groove back.
Yes, exactly. How the Cecils got their groove back.
Yeah.
You fill in the blank. How you got your groove back. So that's it. I think all of us have been in times of our life where we're just in this rut.
Totally.
Every day looks the same as the day before, and we're like, this is not it.
Yeah, I was talking to a dude several months ago now, and he was talking about the rut he and his wife were in. And one of his big complaints was was how late their kids stayed up. And I was like, bro, bring a ritual to this.
Yeah.
Get that kid to bed on time.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no way that could happen. There's no way. We've been in this rut for so long that there's just no way. I said try it and see what happens. And I think I talked to him a week later, and by then he said we've had 4 good nights in a row, and it's getting easier every night. And then 2 weeks later, and then 3 weeks later, and it got better and better and better. And he's like, our son is happier. Our life is better, our sex life is better, we are more peaceful.
Yeah.
And it was just a bedtime. And I know for I know my kids, my daughter especially, she needs a story.
Uh-huh.
She needs a song.
Mm-hmm.
She needs her back rubbed.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound nice?
We've trained her. We've talked about this before. She has her little ritual. We have that ritual now, and we can't go to sleep without it.
Yeah, but it's the magic formula.
It is
in
the
the moment.
formula.
If it's 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, we can. If those things happen in that order, it brings meaning and presence and helps her right into Nemo's dreamland.
That's what I love about learning about rituals and stuff, is that it doesn't have to be this huge, ceremonious, hour-long thing. It can be these small little things we start incorporating into our life that really do have a huge effect. And
what's interesting about rituals is I'm reading For Whom the Bell Tolls right now. About the Spanish Civil War.
He likes some heavy literature, my husband.
Mama. So Hemingway talks about this moment when you are about to proceed in something fantastic, something that's important, and he compared it to when you take your first communion. You want to step into it feeling a certain feeling, but you actually experience something else. And almost sometimes those rituals, those heavy rituals, kind of are it's a little bit of bait and switch, It's supposed to have some kind of meaning, but it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
But what we're saying is you bring the meaning to the moment.
Yes, that's such a good point, because...
So I want to talk about that for a moment, and I want you to tell us the story. And if you can't understand, if you don't know which story I'm talking about, I'll lead you into a little bit. I want you to tell us a story when there was a formal ritual.
Oh my goodness.
That you felt like you needed to partake in.
I know.
to change your life.
I know. I don't know if our listeners are prepared for that story.
Fiasco it is. We're all prepared for it. I can't wait. My tail is wagging.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so in advance, this story will just prove to you that rituals in and of themselves are meaningless.
Yes.
And you got to find what's meaningful to you, because there isn't magic. Rituals aren't about an incantation. It's not a spell that we're doing, but we're finding some ritual. Okay, so my husband's talking about...
Be slow. Just let this come and slide out.
You got to help me through it. Okay. But my husband's talking about my first baptism. Before I was actually a believer of anything, but I saw baptism as...
Why did you think you needed that?
I thought this thing would change me, and I really wanted to be changed.
Of course. How many times have any of us been there and thought, if I just say these words, if I
just buy this program, if I just read this book, if I just do this thing. I mean, it's common. Yeah. So I was 20. I was old enough to probably... I was too old. But
No. I think we all would say we know
25.
better, but we don't know better.
I'm a late bloomer. So
that's fine.
I was 25, and I had graduated with my master's degree.
I knew you at this point. I didn't know you. I didn't know actually what I hadn't kept up with you, but I knew you.
We had crossed paths.
Yeah.
And one plan was just to continue, just this avoid adulthood at all costs and continue just getting higher and higher degrees, staying a student, because it was such a great place to hide out in academia. You could get away with not facing your life by just going to school.
You were feeling a need for a spiritual change,
yes,
right?
Yes, I did. And I don't know. I just had no real relationship with Christianity, but I saw, I knew, I guess, loosely about baptisms. Like something happened when you were baptized.
What did you think that? Did you think your life would change?
Yeah. I thought I would become a really, really holy, clean, pure, good person. I've always wanted to be a good person, and I feel like...
And no one told you were already a good person?
Right. I loved to party at that stage. I was big into... What?
I said, who didn't?
I know. But I was like, oh gosh, I'm getting too old for this. I need to start making better choices with my life. Maybe the water will make me wise.
So you reached out to your grandma.
Yeah, she was the only Christian I knew.
Only churchgoer you knew.
Yeah, and she went to this church.
And she and her husband helped build this church.
Yeah.
And this was like an honest to God old person church.
Yeah.
Made out of wood in the woods of Oregon.
Yeah. Probably most people couldn't hear very well or see very well, thankfully.
But they saw a lot this day.
Yeah. So I had one meeting with the pastor beforehand, and I think he did ask me why I wanted to be baptized, which was his effort to vet me, But I was a really good talker. I could talk myself into anything. I got myself into... Yeah, so I could talk. So I don't even know what I told him. But it was enough to convince him that, yes, or maybe he just pitied me. I don't know. Either way, he let me enter the waters of baptism. And no one coached me on what exactly that looked like or how to prepare for it. And so I knew I was going to get wet. And who gets wet with their clothes on? And so I did the reasonable thing.
Logical.
And put on a bathing suit. And being the thoughtful person that I am, I thought, what bathing suit would be appropriate for this occasion? And, well, I had a white bikini.
Perfect.
And so I put on my white bikini as a symbol of my desire for purity. And so when I entered into the waters of baptism, they did give me a gown to put over it. But when it came up out of the water, that white little gown they gave me clung to my 25-year-old body. You could see the white bikini through it, and I immediately knew something was wrong. Just the gasp in the audience.
I'm going to say everything was right.
And I just felt, the sad part is, I just felt like, oh my gosh, it didn't work. I'm a fool still.
Oh.
I'm a fool, and people are mocking me, and... What's next? So
I'm patting your back. I'm rubbing my wife's back to tell her everything's all right.
Oh,
Thanks
my
for going to that
story. It was
story.
a mortifying experience. I still feel
I love that
ashamed.
story. You know why I love that story? Because I feel like there was something pure. There really was genuinely something right about your desire in that moment. But it's funny how, religious places and humanity, graduation, for instance, these rituals that tell you, from this moment on, you are a man, or you are a spiritually new creature, or you are a woman, or you are a business person, or whatever it is. And they don't, we have to internally ourselves bring meaning and bring the shift to our identity.
We do.
And no one tells us that beforehand.
No, and I think just getting a little more clarity of what did I want from that experience. I think I partly wanted belonging. I wanted to belong somewhere, and that ritual was going to do it for me. I was going to belong to this club. And what it did, though, because it wasn't really, it wasn't mine, and I wasn't ready for it yet, and it didn't have any meaning to me for real yet, that it just made me realize how much I didn't belong.
I've been baptized 3 times, I think, and the last one felt meaningful.
Yeah, thankfully I've been baptized again, and it was more meaningful.
The first one I did, I was 4. Like, what 4-year-old is like thinking about baptism? I was like, oh, pool.
Yeah.
I'm going to swim in that. It's in the church. I like playing in this place. So I've
heard stories, though, of some people that really do feel like they knew it was up even at 4.
Yeah, so. I didn't. I couldn't say sandwich.
Yeah.
So let's move on a little bit to bringing meaning to our daily routines.
Yeah, and so we're going to focus mostly, I think, on the daily stuff, but there is, of course, the rituals in life, like baptism or like marriage, or
and
like
we're not
having
saying
a baby.
To kick those things out. I think they're valuable.
Not at all. But it was a funny story. So it's good. But what we're really talking about in the romance and adventure practices for deeper connection, we wanted to take a close look on what we do daily to transform just the everydayness into something life-giving. And so, I think what is at stake here for all of us is the tension between presence and productivity. Because I think one of the biggest challenges to ritual is feeling like, oh, yeah, that sounds nice. Whether it's, whatever we think ritual is, it sounds nice, but I don't have the time or the energy to, add one more thing to my day to get something done. So, and it's because we are all coming from this place of wanting to get stuff done. Like this productivity mindset is just rampant. It doesn't matter what job you have, even as a stay-at-home mom, I felt just ruled by productivity. And so this tension, we're like, okay, how do we be productive but also be present? Like, we want to be effective in our lives and create and do all that good stuff, but like, how do we be present for it and avoid the autopilot? So, do you want me to ask you a question first, Ronald?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Where do I want to begin?
I'm going to ask you a question since you're still thinking.
I have so many questions for you.
Okay. Well, I think we mentioned last time about how when we were first together, I would hear your yoga music in the morning, and I would look out the bedroom door and you're doing yoga, and I thought that's interesting. That seems more formal than how I'm used to starting my morning. When did that begin with you? Like, at one point in your life, did you think, I need this morning routine that's not just like getting up and brushing your teeth, and reading the paper or turning your phone on or whatever, which is really common, normal.
I think before I understood I think nowadays, especially nowadays, it's like this idea of daily practice and rituals is becoming more and more mainstream. I mean, we're hearing it on so many books,
but it's really not.
Podcasts.
I mean, it's really not.
It's on
new.
the edges. It's on the fringe still, but it's coming closer to the mainstream.
Yeah,
I think, and I think for me, it began before I really knew what I was doing. I just knew I wanted my day to work.
Huh. So how did you figure that out? How did you think, if I do this, my day is going to go better?
Just by experience. I mean, I love my yoga classes.
Why did you decide to do it first thing in the morning? Who planted the idea? What was the...
You're looking for something I don't know if I can give you.
I know, but in the movie Inception, the weapon they're trying to find is planting an idea in someone's brain.
Yeah, okay, so it definitely came from the yogic tradition somewhere.
And
back in my day when I had a guru, and...
you had a guru.
I had a guru, I did, in the year 2000.
We're going to talk about that at some point. You had a guru. I remember finding the picture of your guru, and he kind of looks like this. Was he Buddhist?
No.
No, he looked like a Buddhist monk, and I was like, whoa,
Yes,
who is this?
Yes.
And you're like, he was my guru. And I was like, I don't know anyone who has a guru. What? Guru?
A guru. He was my guru when I was 20 to 21, in my early 20s, and he, through his disciples, I never met him in person.
Yeah.
But...
And guru just means teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't as crazy as people think. I mean, it wasn't worshiping him or anything like that. But I learned to meditate, and meditation was a daily practice. And before I had a daily yoga practice where I would actually move my body, I had a meditation practice.
Yeah.
And then I lost my meditation practice because meditation is a lot harder than yoga. Really.
Wow. Yeah.
It's so much harder.
It is hard. It is really hard.
It was easier to move my body, especially after I had kids. You know, I feel like that's where the yoga practice began more daily, is that I could not just sit there, but I could move my body. And so my yoga practice began in seriousness after I had Luca, and my meditation before that. And so now I would like to bring them both in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you got it from yoga, you think?
I did, yeah. Okay. It's like, because there's that idea in, these traditions of the East that our work really is about an inward journey. Mm-hmm. And that isn't something we hit once and we're done. It's, we got to go back there. We only get to have, and I love this idea from the Jewish tradition of manna, like this story of the Israelites in the desert, and they got manna for today. Yeah. And you don't get to store it up. In fact, you weren't allowed to store it up. And the same idea, I think, is in Eastern traditions where bliss, or, just like you need to return there and keep seeking it. And meditation isn't a once and done deal. Yeah. You get to return to it daily. Yeah. Okay, can I ask you a question?
You do it.
Okay.
You can ask me anything.
Okay, where should I begin? Okay, this is kind of funny. What rituals have you tried to incorporate into your life but have failed miserably at? Or maybe before that question, what is your most meaningful ritual now? Let's work backwards from that. What is your most meaningful daily ritual now? And then tell us about a fail.
Okay. The most meaningful now is probably my I mean, it sounds silly to say practice. My routine. I mean, I bring meaning to it, and I get up. Mm-hmm. I try my hardest not to look at my phone. I would say
I'm gonna help you with that.
Thanks, babe. Mm-hmm. I'd say today was a win. I walked right by that phone.
That's a win. That's
I just looked at it like a snake. I'm not touching you today, or right now. And I make my coffee, and then I read. Normally the Bible, sometimes some other inspirational things. Then I journal and I process what I've been thinking, and that is like a real help to me.
So you made your mornings into a ritual.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like things you do every day to make life work better.
Yeah, and I try to. Especially now that I've learned that it takes like 15 seconds to dwell on something positive for my brain to start to actually change from that. I'm really trying to meditate more on those good things I'm reading, and then I'm also trying to memorize some things.
What are you memorizing?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
And it's really helpful, and I do probably, like you just said, it's a great way to describe it. Is I do feel better. I feel like my day goes better when I have this kind of just moment of reflection and joy. And as far as like a routine going bad, I mean, how many?
Tell us about that tea ceremony you did in college.
Oh yeah, this is a great routine. So, okay, so. I was really into beat literature in college. I guess what college student isn't, right?
It was a phase for all of us.
Yeah, and so I read like every book Jack Kerouac wrote.
Is that Lawrence Ferlinghetti?
No, Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, like I just named, and kind of.
Kurt Vonnegut?
No, Kurt Vonnegut came.
My husband knows literature way more than I do.
I love Kurt Vonnegut. Anyway, so I think it was in the Dharma Bums. I can't quite remember anymore. Dharma Bums. The character has this like Japanese tea ceremony, and he toasts to 5 things. I can't remember what they are, but it's like joy, and someone will remember.
Someone like the fruits of the Spirit.
A little bit. One of them is ecstasy. One of the
Ooh.
things we toasted to is ecstasy.
That would be cool if that was one of the fruits of the Spirit.
Ecstasy. So I started this. I was a New Testament literature major in my college, and I don't know how it happened, but it was during finals week, and I would say, like, it started with me and some guys having this tea ceremony. We drink green tea, and we would toast to these 5 things, these 5 kind of virtues in life. And after like the 4th or 5th night, there's like 20 guys in my room, and quiet at midnight. We do it every night at midnight.
The energy we had when we were in our 20s.
I know, and we've started making up these silly rules to go along with it. And one of them was like, if you mess up the order, you have to pour your tea on your lap and rip off your shirt. In penitence.
This wasn't a drinking game. It wasn't like you mess up the order and you take a shot.
Yeah. And I remember, I think I messed it up, actually. Yeah, it was me. And I had to pour my own tea on my lap. And some other guy was like, no, he ripped his shirt off. So, but the funny thing is years later, I mean, like probably a decade later, someone wrote to me on Facebook and was like, do you remember that tea ceremony? And I was like, oh yeah. And he goes, that was such a meaningful time for me of a reflection.
Love that.
Yeah.
But also just being together with people.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was a little bit like a holier version of church, if you could believe it or not, because we did sit there and we just reflected and rested during a stressful time, which was really good. As far as like fiascos or things failing miserably, I mean, like, how many times have I started workout routines and tried to get them to stick? And
well, that's the difference. Like, there was the difference between like just trying to incorporate something new into your life, like eating better or working out more. That isn't a ritual per se. Like, a ritual is at least the way I understand it.
Yeah.
It's, the 3 main purposes of ritual is, like, 1, bring more beauty to everyday tasks. And so, like, bathing.
Oh, I've got a great one.
Okay. Let me finish this up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, bringing more beauty to everyday tasks. And so for me, that was like adding essential oils to the bath or lighting a candle before I go to sleep. You do that so well. You light the candles for us before we go to sleep.
I've got a great candle stories coming.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, so that's adding beauty to everyday tasks. And another purpose of ritual is just to bring more consistency to your creative passion or work or project. So that could be flow into like the workout routine and the fitness stuff. Is like, what are you going to do right before you put on your tennis shoes? That's a ritual to bring more consistency. I know people that like they have their song, like they have their playlist that's going to get them in the mood for their run or their day. And the third purpose of ritual is to bring you home to yourself, like just to ground you and to help you just feel connected back into the moment, back into the true self. And so anyway, that's if that helps people out there. What is it that we're talking about? We're not just talking about these.
And often rituals incorporate the natural elements, right?
Yeah, there's so many.
So fire, you mentioned lighting candles. I love to light candles at night because it softens the room.
It does.
And it softens my own mind and the atmosphere. And when I was 16, 17, my family moved me we all moved from, small town New Mexico to Dallas, which is actually big city, and I had a very, very difficult time with that transition. And whenever I'm stressed, I cannot sleep, so I started light candles. I would light candles. Yeah. I think that's the first time I started buying Catholic candles.
I love Catholic candles.
And I had them in my room, and at some point I fell asleep, and at some point one of the candles caught fire to some, I don't know what it was in my room, but my room caught on fire. And I thankfully, and it was right next to my head, because I had a water bed with a bookshelf on it. Oh, it was
teenage
amazing.
Ronnie with a water bed?
Hello.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. So it caught fire, and thankfully I woke up and put it out, and it was nearly a fiasco. It was scary.
So those are big,
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Okay. Like, so what, because I said I haven't been good at, workout routine or whatever, but it's really, I think when people think of this stuff, or what I do, I think of generic terms like, how can I create a better habit? right?
Habit.
So what's the difference between a habit and like this ritualized routine or a routine or
Well, I think that rituals, you like them to become a habit in a way because you want them to become a part of your daily life. But when I think of a habit, it's like you're kind of on autopilot. You're not present for it, and you're not really intentionally trying to bring any beauty or meaning to it. It's just happening, right? It's just kind of like
when we pick up our phones, just immediately pick our phones up and go to Instagram.
And I think when people, like the book that we mentioned a few podcasts ago, The Daily Ritual of How Artists Work by Mason Curry, he's exploring like what things or habits help or hinder us in our own creative process. And so, certain habits can help our creative process, and those are the ones we intentionally create. There are habits that just happen, like picking up our phone just because we're wired for this type of like stimulus. And then there's habits that we can be intentional to create of ourselves that are really life-giving. And we want to use, it's like it takes a lot of effort to create these kind of habits because they don't just happen naturally. But when we do able to kind of get them into our daily life as like it's woven into just how we do life, it really does help us make time each day for all the things not only that we have to do but that we want to do. So I have to feed the kids. That's
true.
I have to feed the kids.
Do you have to?
And I really want to do my yoga practice. And when I seasons in my life when I've been without a morning routine or a ritual, I don't get to do. I have to feed the kids, and that happens with sometimes it happens really beautifully, and that's when I like actually have space to think about it. And that usually when it's beautiful the way I feed the kids, it's because I've made time earlier in my day for my morning practice. And then I can like bring in some of that presence into the things that I have to do. Whereas if I think the morning is such an important time because it's so easy to just wake up and just kind of fall into everything that we got to get done, and checking emails and multitasking, having our phone in one hand and coffee in the other and cereal. So I don't know, like the rituals, I'm interested in this, and I feel like I have so much to learn about it still, and there are people that I'm learning from, and I'm just excited about it because yes, it's been a part of my life for many years, but I feel like we together are learning how to make it part of our family, like really conscious, like teaching our kids this stuff too. So what I want to give, like, I love this book that we picked up. It's called Rituals for Living Dream Book. You actually told me about it.
I was the one who told you about this.
And it's by Brianna and Peter Borton, and they have this amazing spa in Portland, Oregon. They have a spa.
It's in Boulder too.
In Boulder. Yeah. And you can find them at the Dragon Tree on Instagram and on the web. But I really love the book that they've created. It really lays out just what is a ritual, how do you weave it into your daily life, and their book is all about planning. And how we found it is that we were looking for, a planner. I was looking for a planner. I love journals, but I need a planner in my life. I'm not really good at that, and I'm gonna get better in 2016. And so, anyway, I just feel like it's
actually you're
really
pretty
helpful.
good at that. You're really good at planning.
I'm good at maybe laying down a plan, but like the execution day to day, I'm gonna get better at.
You're good. You're good, honey.
So I recommend it. I really recommend their book, and I'm learning so much. It's nice to just see like, oh, so much about what we have been leaning into and doing is actually a thing that we can like bring even more attention to and get better at. But one thing I really loved in their book is they talk about the elements of ritual, and they just lay out 12 things that, if you're interested in like, okay, I want to make a ritual, a morning ritual, I want to make an evening ritual, what can I do? And they just talk about, like we talked about, light a candle. Or a fireplace. Fire is a symbol of illumination, warmth, and connection. They also talk about the words you use, whether, for us it's like reading the Bible or memorizing scripture or Psalms, or they also talking about, saying a blessing or a mantra to invoke just that intention for your day. So anyway, just wanted to mention it. We're working through it right now and using it in our own life, and I think some of you listeners out there would love to check it out.
It's really good. It's awesome to check out. So,
and two other things, since we're talking about resources.
Yeah.
Two other books, and we'll put these in the links in the show notes. I'm just reading this book. I literally just started it yesterday, but I love her podcast. It's Krista Tippett's new book. It's called Becoming Wise, An Inquiry into the Mystery and Art of Living. And within the introduction, I was like, she's speaking our language. This is it. She says, what we practice, we become. What's true of playing the piano or throwing a ball also holds for our capacity to move through the world mindlessly and destructively, or generously and gracefully. I've come to think of virtues and rituals as spiritual technologies for being our best selves, flesh and blood, in time and space. So I love that.
Yeah.
Her book is like just such a great resource. And also the book that I was reading at the beginning of this, our adventure, about Sabbath, Wayne Mueller's book about Sabbath, finding rest, renewal, and delight. And he talks about Sabbath not just in like the day, but in these moments. And I think rituals help us create these Sabbath moments in our life. And his book talks a lot all about these Sabbath practices, like lighting candles, so many things that, the elements of ritual he talks about as Sabbath practices, and being able to find that rest, renewal, and delight in the in-between moments of our day. So just a couple of resources. And then we can get back to the flow of our questions. But I love these books, and I learn so much from others. And I just want to...
And for you, reading is a ritual, isn't it?
I don't know if it's a ritual, but it definitely...
It's a very, very big part of the way you do life.
Yeah. And I just eat it out.
And you derive meaning from it.
So much. I mean, I am indebted to authors and writers and thinkers and poets and people who are... really asking these cool questions about what it means to live well, live and love well, and, taking not just, I don't think there's enough of, let's create space for asking the questions and exploring the mystery of it, because it's not all black or white. There's a lot of gray in there too. And so, but I can go into a whole different topic, so I'm going to get us back on track and ask you a question about rituals. Okay, what is the magic hour, the time of day that Ron Cecil is on? This relates to ritual, because when you think about creating ritual in your own life,
it depends.
Think about your magic hour.
Like when I'm most creative. When I'm most. What do you mean when I'm on?
When you're on. When you just feel like life looks the best.
Probably after 2 cups of coffee.
Yes, in the morning.
Yeah, probably in the morning. I mean, but there's just different times. I mean, I think that I feel, the other night we were, I think it was our first night here, and we've always stayed in places on this trip most of the time we've stayed in places with fireplaces. Yeah,
we love fireplaces.
And so I like to light a fire at night, and I love the process of building a fire. I love just the work that goes into it. And I built a fire. We had a big day, lots of time in the pool, lots of just the travel. We drove for 5 hours that day in the morning, and the fire was going, and Emma fell asleep first on me, and then Luca fell asleep on you, and then you fell asleep. And that was magic. I could hear all 3 of you kind of snoring away, breathing, and the fire crackling, and it was pure magic. And I mean...
That's something I would love. We live in a little apartment, so there's no building a fireplace in there. But I love that. I think people who do have fireplaces, that becomes like a winter ritual or maybe an evening ritual where they do light a fire and they gather. I mean, for eons, right? People have been lighting fires and gathering around.
Yeah, I think there's just different moments. I mean, I think there's different moments where throughout the day, that depending on what is required of me, depending on what I'm being called to do or asked to do or want to do, like I come to myself, I become present, I become ready through different things. And I always try to catch myself, like when is meaning required and when is emptiness required.
What do you mean
by emptiness?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to slog out some work. Sometimes you have to just vacuum.
Yeah.
You know,
but
sometimes,
that's the idea.
Sometimes
we can bring beauty to. How do we bring beauty to vacuuming?
Sometimes.
I'll tell you how. Can I tell you how?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah. Sometimes, like I talk about it a lot. I love rock climbing, and sometimes I just have to turn my brain off, and it just becomes a reptilian response to the stimulus. I just have to react, and I like that. I love that feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of like the flow. You're describing the flow.
Yeah, but yesterday I went on a run, and my brain was cracking yesterday. I mean, it was just so many things were going through it, and my brain was not off. I was absolutely processing things, and yes, you can bring meaning to vacuuming. And if you'd like to tell me.
Well, I think of the, the Italian mamas, who really, I mean, the Italian grandmothers and the mothers that I met when, in my early 20s, they were so busy making home life. I mean, cooking and cleaning, and they took such pride in the work. And I just remember, like, starting off my own, I want to be like that. And so one of the things I think of is, like, they have these beautiful house coats, and it's like they dress for it.
Yeah.
And it's not like just like, old sweats and a dirty t-shirt, but they have like this house coat. And then there's music playing, or they're singing with it, and I try, when I clean, I try to make it a pleasant experience by bringing beauty in, whether it's, something I'm listening to. The ritual of cleaning house, I think we can add a lot of beauty to by just like making it meaningful, by using that time to listen to a podcast. When you got me the
headphones,
that was the best Christmas gift ever. I could like escape into this beautiful world while I was still with the kids.
Yeah.
But like listening to music.
Yeah. I've been telling you that it matters to buy nice headphones. And you didn't believe me, and I did it.
So that's a way you can bring meaning to vacuuming. You can listen, you can put on your favorite music and make it a beautiful time where you're just completely present for that music, and let that music minister to you while you are cleaning.
Do you remember when we were in Tangiers the other day, and I
love that sentence, by the way.
I know. That's why I said it. That's why I said it.
We'll be back home in Portland.
There was design
great, but
behind
that's a beautiful sentence. Remember when we were in Tangiers the other day?
And we were having lunch, a late lunch, and the call to prayer started, and the city seemed to get quieter in that moment. And we looked out the window, and we were in the old city. And there were some workers working on an apartment or something next door, a small building. They're on the roof, and these were like workers.
Yeah, they're old too.
Old guys, and they stopped. And I remember one of the guys in his work clothes stopped, and he faced east, and he prayed.
Yeah.
And there was real devotion in his face. There was real holiness in what he was doing.
I was impressed that someone could transition. Like, that's like comes from practice and the day in, day out of this ritual. But you know how hard it is to like snap out of it? Like, even we talk about this in the R&A Sutras. We have a whole module on the art of coming home, because we spend the bulk of our day, at work. We work outside the home, and then we return to our home. And it's so hard to connect to the people and even to ourselves, because our mind has been so in that other place. So what I marveled at when I watched him pray, and it was like, he is fully present for that prayer.
Totally.
He is not... doing it in name only. He is there. He is praying. And I was like, just a minute ago, he was slogging it out on the roof, building something. I was so impressed by his presence, his devotion. I was like, wow, that's beauty, and that's a beautiful ritual.
I used to work for this venture capitalist who was a venture capitalist businessman by day and a Presbyterian minister on the weekends.
That's a great duo.
And he was a fascinating guy. And he had his whole day kind of ready and ritualized, and he even had a kneeler in his house where he would kneel and pray. But he'd get up really early. He would have his quiet time. He would work out. He had a gym in his garage. He'd spend time with then he'd go wake up his little baby daughters and spend time with his kids, and then he'd come to work around 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And so he'd already been up for 4 or 5 hours at that point. and then he would start work, and then around 1, he'd call me into the office and say, Ron, let's do our midday prayers. And we would open the Book of Common Prayer, and we would read through them. And then we would work, and then we'd both go home for dinner, spend time with our family, and there was a couple times where many kind of seasons where we needed to go back to work. So we'd come back to work, we'd go through our evening prayers together, and we'd work for 2 or 3 more hours before 9, 10 at night, and then we'd go back home. And it was a season of very hard work for both of us. Really fascinating.
Yeah.
To blend, the sacred and whole and normalized life, the business and the sacred together, and family. We made time for family, and I think that's something that stands out to me here. Siesta isn't a time to go here. I've noticed here, it's not a time to go sleep. People are doing their family stuff.
Yeah.
They're spending time on their the things they need to do for themselves, and you see families together, and you see husbands and wives together.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Really interesting to me.
It reminds me of the Annie Dillard quote, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. And I think that's the thing, too, about, turning everyday routines into life-giving rituals. We're human beings. There's things we have to do every single day, all of us. Eat, sleep, shower, work.
Yeah.
But how we do those things is what makes up our life. And if we're looking for beauty and meaning and richness and sacredness in our life, then we need to bring those things to our everyday.
Oh, did you hear the golden oriole? That's it.
I hope that was picked up on there.
I hope
the
so.
golden oriole.
Golden oriole.
Okay, I have another question for you, Ron.
Okay.
Cecil. And this is, let's think about our life. This is I really want to know, and this is for us in our marriage. Actually, before I get to that, because maybe that's the last question I ask you. One of the things about ritual is one of the elements of ritual is objects of significance.
Yeah.
And that could be, a feather, it could be a crystal, it could be a Bible, it could be a photo, it could be anything that's meaningful to you. But you actually, in your workspace, you had a man board.
I had a man wall.
A man wall.
Not just a board, a wall.
Tell us about that man wall. What was on the man wall? It
was just kind of my place where I just drew kind of inspiration. So I had some big pictures of my family. I had a couple of old rifles that were my dad's. I had some antique climbing gear that I'd found over time in climbing areas. I had just different parts of my life that felt inspiring and meaningful, and kind of remember who I am.
Yeah.
And to remember where I came from and what I love.
I think that's something simple we all can do. I mean, I think...
And it was handsome. It was made out of wood.
It was gorgeous.
At one point I had tobacco leaves hanging on it.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah. I love that you had that. And you didn't know you were making a space for ritual, but that's what you were doing. I mean, it's in a way, it was an altar of some sort, and a sacred space in your workspace that connects you back to the truth of who you are, and, reminds you, it has the power to bring you into the present moment. This is what's real. This is your life. And when you get lost in emails that are just stressful and all that. But I have this little shelf in our closet.
Oh yeah.
I
know this shelf.
Yeah. I think what I want to do when I come home is to bring a little more intention in how to craft the shelf. But it has become an altar of sorts there's something in me that wanted it, but it has photos that are meaningful to me. It has, little drawings that Emma and Luca have done for me, or that poem, and it has just little objects that mean something to me. And that is a space, a sacred space. And when I get dressed in the morning, I'm in my closet picking out my clothes. It's I see that shelf, and it's that's me. That's the sum total of what's really meaningful.
My dad had a place like that on top of his dresser, and I knew some other kids whose dads had their space.
Yeah.
They're on top of the dresser. My dad had his like pocket knife.
Yes.
And his wallet, which was his money clip, which is why I carry a money clip.
Yeah.
And there's just these little things, and I found out a couple of my friends, their dads had a similar sacred space.
I think
And there's
it's a desire in us.
well, there's an interest. So
Yeah.
somebody started following me recently. It's a company called Manbox on Instagram, and they make these like boxes that are made of just kind of rough wood, and they're really handsome for men to kind of keep their sacred things.
That's so cool.
Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
Like they make these handmade razors and other cool stuff. You know, so it's like there's kind of treasure chests. They're a little ritual place that they keep things.
I think it's in us. Like, we all want connection to the sacred and to meaning. And I think we're doing this, like, by just, we're naturally drawn. I mean, like, your dad had no idea about, you know, the conversation that we're having today. He wasn't, like, consciously, like, creating a altar for himself or
Maybe
a ritual place.
Maybe he was.
But we could do this. I want to say this as encouragement to our listeners that, you know, look at your house, look where your space is. And I'm thinking a lot of you have something like that, like a little corner of a room or a shelf or whatever. And then maybe just bring a little more intention to it. Maybe buy some flowers for that space. Maybe tidy it up a little bit. But like, be intentional about it. Here's where you can create a sacred space. And this is one way to, this is a little, side project of turning everyday routines into life-giving rituals. But like having an altar in your home of some sort, an altar, you can decide how you want to interpret that. But having a space where your sacred things are to remind you of who you are and bring you back to the present moment.
I have one question before you ask me that. Are you getting ready to ask me the last question? Okay, I'm gonna have one question for you before I ask. Okay. Have you ever been unhealthy in your daily rituals?
Yes.
Because I want to talk about when we can be unhealthy about stuff like this.
Yeah, I think this is the problem of religiosity.
Yeah.
Like, where the difference between, a ritual that is deeply meaningful to you and life-giving and a ritual that you think is going to get you something that you're having to strive, it's like, I need to earn my way to this, and this is my performance on how I earn my place. The very same rituals can be approached from very different intentions. And I think that there was a time in my life after I had my guru. I was learning so much about meditation, and I
love that you had a guru, by the way. Yes, that's great. We all do. We just don't call them gurus.
No, but like I moved. My year of studying abroad in Australia was over, and I no longer had a community to really to meditate with and to learn from. And so I was on my own, and I was doing the best I could. And I was amazed by how quickly that life-giving routine became just so strict and just life-sucking and ultimately for me, because I just got so hard on myself. It became all about the discipline. I remember getting up like 4:45, 5. This was my thing. I would get up, meditate, go for a run, do some push-ups and sit-ups, just disciplining the body, disciplining the mind, be in to study at the coffee shop as soon as they opened, 6:30, be in there for a couple hours before my first class. And I was terrified to talk to any other peer because I was so afraid that they would take me away from my routine, and I would be that pendulum that I was now I was in what I thought was this is what it looks like to live a good life, because I wasn't drinking and I wasn't carrying on with people, with boys. I was just became so dependent on that routine and ritual that I was afraid to actually just be natural in the world and just be a normal human being.
That's what religion, and I use that word as a set of rules, can do to us. I read...
We're afraid to integrate.
Yeah, I read this article, an interview with a guy who started the paleo movement here. And he's a dude. He's a business guy. He wants to make money, and he is. And I'm not saying the paleo diet's bad, but it's like he has a plan. He wants to sell his stuff. But the interesting thing, he spoke at a conference, and at the end of the conference, he goes, "Hey guys, you hardliners out there, you're actually ruining this movement for everybody.
Yeah.
Because you go to a birthday party and you won't eat the cake."
Yes. Yeah.
He says, "Eat the cake." Eat the damn cake.
Yeah.
Relax a minute.
I think that's a good point, because like I was at that time in my life, I was really letting my quote unquote rituals like destroy my relationships with like my family. Even like I wouldn't do things. I was afraid to like do normal family events because I was afraid to get out of my routine. And I think this is more common. I think this is common. I think once we found what's working for us, you know, if it saved us from like a destructive path, like we're so afraid to like improvise with it and to just be flexible that we like we treat it as our lifesaver.
Yes.
And we really think that there's some sort of magic in that thing, and if we lose that thing, then the magic will be gone. And what we forget is that it's in us, and the purpose of ritual isn't to it's in us, like that. This is, and so yes, there's been times in my life where I feel like so much in my teens and 20s I was this pendulum where I would be like the party girl, and I could party. I loved it, and I did it well.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then I recognized something in that was self-destructive, and I didn't want to live my life that way. I wanted to be a good person and make good choices. And so I would swing hardcore to the other side, and become, a monk or a nun, or, just like it took me into my 30s and becoming a mother to begin to learn how to integrate, like just being a normal human being and being deeply committed to the path of personal growth, spiritual growth, wholeness, and not being afraid. We can't just go off into a cave and meditate, and that's easy. We separate ourselves from the world, but how do we live in the world with all of its temptation and distraction and all of that, and still pursue this path of wholeness? So yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up. That life-giving is the key word. That's why we're turning everyday routines into rituals, isn't it? It's turning everyday routine into life-giving rituals.
Yeah.
So, and that's constant, like we're monitoring that. We're always like being present for how this is working for us and making us feel. Anything else we want to say before we wrap it up, honey?
Well, I do have some things to say, but I'll wait for the last question.
Okay. Oh yes, the last question for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is about us and our marriage and how we're going to go forward.
What?
No, but we're all we are gonna go forward. But how are we gonna go forward, making this coming season even more just fruitful and beautiful and rich than the previous season? Because I think that's what we believe, that life is getting better and better. And yes, there's ups and downs and all of that, but together we're learning how to make life work even better now than it was yesterday. So the question is, what rituals do you want to get better at and incorporate into our day?
I think I want to increase the frequency of my spiritual reflection. So not just in the morning, but do it at lunch, the midday and in the evening. Because I think my brain needs more time to spend in those good places. So,
and how do you, you said process spiritually, or would you say reflect spiritually?
Yeah, both.
So what is that? What is the ritual of that?
Yeah, that means reading, writing,
journaling,
memorizing. Yep, those three things.
So how will you implement this?
I think I'm gonna have to. I think part of it requires just a set time for those things. Like this is the time for that. Noon is the time for that, or whatever. What time, we decide.
So you put an alarm on your phone and you honor it when it goes off. You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to stop what I'm doing, and I'm going to journal for 10 minutes, or I'm going to.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and then.
I'll join you in that.
Oh, you don't have to, but thanks.
I want to. This
and then
is good.
The other is to honor my body. And honor my family with my body, because my kids, I want to be able to keep up with them always. And you, I want you to be attracted to me always.
I am attracted to you.
All right, but
But yeah,
but also to me, because I want to be happy with how I feel in my skin, in my bones, in my bag of meat. I want to feel happy to be here. And, I was telling you this morning,
So how will that be a ritual?
probably, a loose or a, medium, moderately adhered to schedule, without getting too crazy, too disciplined, too not fun, of, working out and doing things. For me, for my body, it has to be fun.
Yeah. So we'll have to explore ways to maybe create a ritual around working out, whether it's like you got your favorite shoes that you lace up or you got your favorite song, but something that because what I want to make clear for our listeners is that the working out in itself isn't the ritual.
It's not. It's not. Yeah. And the interesting thing is,
how do we enter in?
It just hit me is like, the ritual is all about setting the mood.
It is. It is so about setting the mood.
It just hit me because like the candles and the songs and the smells, that's not sex. That's just setting it all up, right? And that's like when we go to church, like the candles and the light and all, the same things, interestingly, the smells, like, that's not worship. It's getting you ready to worship.
Getting up.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
This is all foreplay stuff. It just dawned on me right now. Everyone just heard me realize
aha
all
moment
this
for Ron Cecil.
Whoa.
Yeah, and this is what's big. This is like, I think, it kind of like a shifting all of us to help our perspective. Like, what is it when we talk about ritual? What is it that we're actually talking about? And I think we can make it really small. It's just the little tiny beautiful things. The one thing, we light one candle before we start our day. And I think that's for me a big thing is that when we are at home, we started this practice of lighting candles in the morning because it was, winter time, it was still dark, and we could just, instead of just flipping on the lights or flipping open the phone and just being like bombarded with like unnatural light and the screen, we decided to start our days just lighting a candle. Yeah. And it changed so much, and that for me is ritual. It's like the small things we do that help us, one, just create beauty where there was an absence of it before. It helped ground us. And then something that I want to do, a ritual that I want us to work on, one aspect of ritual being it brings more consistency to your creative work and your, the work that you're doing in the world. And you're a great writer, honey. And I want to work on writing. So I remember last year we had a ritual of writing for 15 minutes before we went to bed.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
And I want to bring that back. I want to write daily. So writing can be a ritual.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it can. Absolutely.
Walking, running can be a ritual, but it's also the little things. I hope I didn't just contradict myself in saying that writing is a ritual, but working out isn't. But do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference.
Yeah,
Working out, I guess, could be if you treated it as a ritual, but it's also the little things you do.
It's whatever you bring meaning to on a regular basis.
Yeah. So, you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to hear about your routine, your how you're transforming your everyday routines into life-giving rituals. And this is the thing. Start with some suggestions here from us, but also explore what works in your life. Like, create your own. Give yourself like a couple months to just experiment and find what's really meaningful to you. Pick up some of these books we mentioned and let them inspire you. And tell us what's inspiring you. Like, if you guys know of a book or a podcast or, a TED Talk that's about this stuff, like, tell us in the comments and the show notes.
We want to hear from you. You can email us, hello@romanceandadventure.com. I also want to say thanks. Thanks for subscribing. I've seen like a big boost in our subscriptions this week already for people subscribing to our podcast. And I'd say, please keep sharing this. And it's so meaningful to us to get this feedback that we're getting. We're getting such wonderful emails from people. And I just want to say, those of you who've emailed us,
thank you so much.
Morgan and I read them together. We just sit there and just are in awe. So thank you so much. And again, connect with us on Instagram at Romance and Adventure.
And we hope this is opening space in your life for deeper connection. I mean, this is like the heart of our work at Romance and Adventure. We really want to live deeply connected lives ourselves, and we believe it's it's for everyone. So
also, we're doing 2 live streams every week over on Facebook, our page on Facebook, on Wednesdays and Fridays. We're doing one on Wednesday and Friday. And so those will be at different times because we're trying to make it available to people on both sides of the world. So just tune into our Facebook account.
It's
just called
Facebook/Romance and Adventure.
Is it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and
thanks for listening
so much. Thanks, you guys. Grace and peace, and have a wonderful week.